Okay, everybody, it looks like the time is 2 o'clock. Just want to welcome everybody to this meeting before we kick it off with the chairs of the two Turlock Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Agency Technical Advisory Committees. So just you see here on your screen a couple reminders that are pretty common for us at this point in time. And I'll just note that we are recording the meeting, and it's going to be posted to the YouTube channel as soon as possible after this meeting ends. And then we have some meeting materials that are going to be presented today. Then they are available already on the website as well. And I believe at this point in time, it's the presentation that is going to be presented on items 7 and 8, I believe, by Phyllis from Todd Groundwater. So with that being said, Michael, I know you and Karen were fighting over who's going to take the meeting. So you get to start it off.
Thanks, Herb. Karen let me win today, so that was good. So good afternoon, everybody. This is Michael Cook. I'm chair of the West Turlock Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Agency Technical Advisory Committee. These are joint meetings we have with our partners in the East Turlock Subbasin. First item on the agenda is calling the two technical advisory committees to order. And the West Turlock, we need 7 people or 7 members for a quorum. Right now, I show Karen from Ceres and Herb and Debbie from TID, Miguel from the City of Modesto, Mike Pitcock from Waterford and Hickman. I see David Odom from Denair and Leandro from Delhi. Who have I missed? Lacey. And Lacey from the County of Merced. So with that, I call the West Turlock Subbasin TAC to order at 2:02 p.m. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, I see for the East Turlock, and we need 3 to have a quorum. I see Lacey McBride and Matt Beeman. Are there any other East Turlock TAC members that I'm missing? I think that's it, but with those 2 and myself, Sarah Wolf, we have a quorum, so we can call our meeting to order as well at 2:02.
All right, we have a meeting, which is good because we do have some action items on the agenda to get today. Our first item now is public participation. This is a time set aside for members of the public to directly address the technical advisory committees on any item of interest to the public that is within our subject matter area. You're allowed 5 minutes. You can talk about anything now, or if it is an agenda item, you can save your comments to that time or speak now. So with that, public participation, do we have any comments under public participation? Doesn't sound like it. I'm flicking through. I don't see any hands raised. So with that, we'll move past public participation and move on to item number 4, which is the approval of minutes. For the West Turlock Subbasin TAC, we have the minutes of the October 24th special joint meeting, the October 28th regular joint meeting, and the November 24th special joint meeting. And these minutes were sent out earlier in the week. Do I have a motion to approve or make amendments? West Turlock folks, what do you think?
So moved.
Okay, so a motion from Curtis with Gilmore County Water District to approve those 3 sets of minutes as submitted. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Go ahead, Liam.
Second, Karen from the City of Ceres. Before we take a vote, any changes, any further comments? Okay, with that, I'll take a motion for approval or a vote for approval. We do it by voice vote. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, those minutes stand approved unanimously. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. And we need to approve the same group of minutes, October 4th, 28th, and November 4th. Can I get a motion from the East Turlock group to approve those minutes?
Lacey, so moved.
Thank you, Lacey. In a second.
I'll second.
Great. And we will do a voice vote. Lacey?
Yes.
and Matt,
Yes.
and yes from myself. So we have approved those 3 sets of minutes for the East Turlock.
Okay, wonderful. Moving on to item number 5. This is a presentation regarding the implementation and support activities and the associated schedule and costs for implementing the GSP. And it's a sad day when I have to make a presentation, but I do. So here we go. All right. Let's put that in this. It's switch screens. I think I do, right? How does that look?
You're good.
Good.
Okay. Thanks, Herb. Okay. So as you know, to implement the GSP in Chapter 9, we have a list of implementation support activities. There are 11 of those, and we've been working on those together over the last few months. And I think the joint board meeting, they looked at those and put them out for approval. But as part of that, we put together a schedule for the amount of time we think it will take us to work on those 11 activities over the first 5 years of the plan. And you can see that there. So a lot of it's what I call soft costs, like monitoring and updating data gaps, and working on our water accounting mechanism, updating the model, working on a data management system, well registration and management, working on financing, updating Opti, which is the kind of grant portal for the state. So various different things of those activities we'll be doing over the next 5 years. As you see, some are just ongoing, and some we have a more definitive schedule to do in the first 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. So that's the proposed schedule for those 11 implementation support activities. And then there's cost to that, obviously, and that's the information I just showed you in table 9.2 from the GSP. We're estimating will cost about $330,000 to $585,000 per year. So a total cost of 1.5 to 2.2 million over the first 5 years of the GSP. Again, those costs will be shared between the West Turlock and East Turlock GSAs, because those 11 implementation support activities are kind of joint activities. So significant costs over the first 5 years just for implementation. And then remember too, on top of that, the second bullet point will also be continuing to administer our groundwater sustainability agencies and administering the plan. We estimate that to be about $150,000 to $225,000 per year per GSA. And I thank Mike Tietza for putting that information together. The West Turlock's a little bit different to the East Turlock. We don't have paid staff, but staff effectively provide their time through their employer. So there's a cost to their employer of the time that they spend working on Sigma related activities. So it's not necessarily a hard cost for some of the West Turlock agencies, but it is an impact to their overall budget. And then, as we talked about a few weeks ago for Chapter 8, we're looking at a number of projects and management programs, and those range from thousands of dollars to millions of dollars. So again, we're not getting into detail about those activities today because we've done that, but just remind the board that we're looking at significant costs over the next few years for these projects. So that's basically it. I want to take this information to the joint board meeting on December 15th and show them what we've worked on and why we think this schedule and cost makes sense. Again, these are estimates for what we know right now. Every year we learn more. We're doing annual reports. As we know more, we can refine the costs. But again, these are ballpark estimates. It's something that we need to include in our GSP to show the financial impact and commitment of implementing Sigma in our subbasin. So Mike Tietza, I don't know if you have anything to add or if he's even on. Stop sharing. Or Sarah, maybe from the East Turlock.
I don't have anything to add to your presentation. Thank you for doing that.
Okay.
I don't know if we want to hear from the committee, hear if there's any questions.
Yeah, so at this point, any questions or comments from the East Turlock or West Turlock Technical Advisory Committees? Just a word, I mean, we have been very fortunate so far with funding requests, have pay for a significant amount of the GSP, the EIR, and some of the the well installation costs. And obviously we'll continue to seek grant funding where we can. It's available, but just to so we know as agencies there will be a cost of implementing the GSP over time.
Michael, do we know of any agencies or opportunities that will exist for grant funding as we get to the implementation phase of this? I mean, have we heard anything that there's going to be funding available annually, one-time fund? I mean, is there anything that's given us any sort of idea what will be out there?
I know the state of California will have continued rounds of funding for Sigma under, I can't remember which proposition it is. I want to phone a friend right here. Anybody help me out?
It'll be under Prop 68 funding.
68 funding. So there is a pool of funds, Curtis, that the state's committed to Sigma implementation. So we hope to see more and more of that over time. But again, it's always competitive and there are no guarantees.
And Michael, excuse me, it's Phyllis Stanton. I'll just add that we're expecting the open date for that to occur in fall 2022, and then a 3-year performance period, and then expecting awards winter 2022 into 2023.
Wonderful. Curtis, I have answered your question.
Yeah, I just think, from a director standpoint, they're going to see those numbers flash up there and realizing still that from a fundraising standpoint, we're very young in our efforts. I think those price tags will start to show up and people, we've always said that when it starts hitting people's pocketbooks, that's when they pay attention. And I don't think we're immune to that as the agency. Where I think, some of the directors will look at that and realize that they've got a proportionate share of those amounts, in some way or another. So I think it's good that we stay on top of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if when we present this to the board, if that comes up as a curiosity or a topic of conversation.
Yeah, it's good advice. I think I'll add something about Prop 68 and other funding opportunities into the staff report, but kind of give that segue into that question. Do you have any other questions? If not, this is an action item. So action from the West Turlock board to recommend this information be included in the GSP. Obviously, it's our recommendation to our boards that this, or our West Turlock board, that this information be included in our sustainability plan. So with that, I'll take a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Michael.
Okay,
Second.
so thank you. So Curtis from Hilmar and Miguel from Modesto, a first and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, motion stands approved. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. And we're looking for the same motion from the East Turlock. And I'll also note that I saw that Walt Ward, member of the East Turlock TAC, also is online. So could I get a first and second for this?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Matt.
I'll second, Walt.
Thanks, Walt. Okay, so I have a first and second. We'll do a roll call vote. Matt Beeman,
Yes.
Walt Ward,
Yes.
Lacey McBride,
Yes.
and myself, Sarah Wolf. Yes, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Moving on to item number 6, which is the accounting mechanism for water supplies within the basin. We have, I know Valerie's here, I don't know if Lauren's here.
I didn't see Lauren on, so I think.
Lauren isn't here, but my name is Jessica Johnson. I'm in the same office as Lauren, and I'm here to take her place just for today.
Fantastic. So welcome, Jessica. So Val and Jessica will discuss information regarding the proposed mechanism for counting and targeted timeline for developing the groundwater accounting structure for water supplies within the basins. Over to you, Valerie and Jessica.
Sure, I'll start if that's fine with Jessica. So a little bit of background, the last board meetings, both the West and the East Turlock boards adopted an amendment to the memorandum of agreement. And that amendment was geared towards addressing kind of this outstanding issue of water accounting by GSA. The amendment did several things. It kind of committed to adopting a single GSP and agreeing that the accounting mechanism would be teed up and resolved after that adoption. In section E of that, the resolution adopting the MOA, it did call for inclusion of an implementation support activity addressing the groundwater accounting structure. So both Jessica's office and my office worked together on this ISA, and I think it's ISA number 3, implementation support activity number 3. And it sets out a timeline as required to resolve the groundwater accounting structure. And the timeline generally is broken down into 6-month periods. The first 6 months, so 6 months after the GSP is adopted, there will be a set of agreed upon rules, and that will guide the accounting process. 1 year out, there will be an identification of any outstanding data or information that's needed to support that accounting. 18 months after the adoption of the GSP, each GSA will have its proposed final accounting to the other party. And then in 24 months, 2 years from GSP adoption, the goal is to have a final GAS, an unfortunate acronym, I guess, groundwater accounting structure adopted by both sides. So again, from the West Turlock perspective, that's just that needed timeline to make sure we're addressing this, that it's going to be done in a timely manner. And I think a thoughtful kind of stepping through rules, data, accounting, and negotiation agreement. So that is the kind of ISA 3 that has been developed. And I think the action would be to recommend that that is included in the GSP. Jessica, I don't know if I forgot anything. If you want to add anything, please jump in.
Oh, that's great. So I understand that's pretty accurate. From the East Turlock GSA perspective, of course, we just want to ensure that everyone is we're committed to working through the process, but we just wanted to add a little bit of flexibility in the language of the timeline, just because this is going to be part of the GSP, and we wanted not to be caught unawares if something unforeseeable happens. But this is, we agree that this is the recommendation is to adopt this structure and the agreed upon language so we can get to a solution for the accounting issue.
Great. Michael, any questions, thoughts?
Thanks. Well, thanks, Jessica and Valerie, for taking care of this. And any questions for our attorneys? I know a lot of work went into this. It's very important for the West Turlock board that not only we have something in the plan, we also commit to kind of a fairly firm deadline to getting this done. But as Jessica mentions, it's important to get the wording right. So if we did something unforeseen happen that we both agreed to, we weren't painting ourselves into a corner and making life too difficult for ourselves for unknown reasons. The intent is the most important thing. Any questions for technical advisory committee members? Guys are quiet today, like post-Thanksgiving tryptophan fatigue or something. Okay, so with that, Herb, can you scroll up a little bit? Sorry. The motion before us, I found it again. The motion before us is to approve the proposed mechanism and targeted timeline for developing the groundwater accounting structure for water supplies within the basin, and recommending the inclusion of that information in the draft GSP. So with that, we have a motion for approval.
This is Karen. I will motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll
Karen.
second.
Motion by Karen, second by Curtis.
I think there might be a question too from the public. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you,
Oh,
Michael.
sorry. Do we have any, oh, we have a question from Rhett. I apologize. Rhett, your hand is up. How can we
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, this is Rhett Calkins. I was curious if this will be a public process, and there'll be meetings that the public can attend, so we know the direction on the accounting and what the stand is on the west side and what the stand is on the east side.
Yeah, so I think that there are a few deliverables that will be obviously worked on and then presented. So the rules and accounting kind of guidelines, my sense is that that will be a public document that folks can comment on. The outstanding data also similar. I think that the detailed accounting from each side, my sense is that will be developed by tax and therefore kind of brought to the TAC as a Brown Act body. And so the public will get to see that and have input. I mean, I think when you go back and forth and try to resolve what I assume may be differences between those two accounting perspectives, I think that there will be, discussions back and forth. And I think that's going to be as public as it can be. But you'll see, my sense is both sides of the accounting structure in each of these 6-month steps. And then obviously the final will be adopted. And my sense is that will actually have to be adopted by the board. So
the time frame is long, in my opinion, 24 months to come to an agreement on accounting. Is that a reasonable time frame for the state, or just as a farmer and domestic well owner and prior occupant of the city, it seems like we need to know where we're at. Was conjunctive use in Turlock Irrigation District really contributing to groundwater, or was it contributing to the basin as a whole? Where did the water go? Where did a whole lot of acre feet of water go? And it seems like we could sit down right now and have a basic discussion of, the water's way down. We don't have to nail down every acre foot. We know we can't do that, but we can look at just the last 10 years and say, wow, this is a lot of water disappeared in this underground reservoir. We got a pretty good idea of where it's going. I mean, we don't have the last acre foot, but we got a pretty good idea. We're short, and that's why the state's making us look at monitoring groundwater. And so as a basin, it seemed like a basic concept that we're leaving out of this plan is the accounting, because it's the first question that comes to mind is, how are we going to fix it? And if we don't agree on how the water's being used, then the only recourse is to look at all of us using less together, or all of us trying to put more into the ground. And it seems unfair to put the West in that position for 2 years and take us out of this conjunctive use management that TID's implemented on the west side. because now conjunctive use doesn't mean anything. We're adding water, but it's not accounted to us. It's accounted to the basin as a whole. I just think we need to accelerate this. I don't see how we can leave accounting out of a groundwater sustainability management plan. We're in a drought period, and who knows how long it's going to last. So we have an urgency, I think, to address, and it's going to be real interesting next water year, this coming water year, if it's dry and we don't have any explanation for where the water's going. We don't have a water accounting standard. We can't explain to people why their well's going dry.
Some of the stuff you said has like a policy component to it, and I'll probably let Michael Cook or someone else from at least the West Turlock address that. But you made several good points, and maybe one of the things from kind of a legal perspective that I neglected to mention, but that will be included in the GSP, and it's in the appendices to the section of the GSP that talks about accounting, is that the positions of both the West Turlock and the East Turlock on specific GSA accounting as it sits now will be included. So, and then the other component is that there is a basin-wide accounting of how water moves in and out of the basin. The step of the accounting is not telling us how water moves, it's telling us who owns the water. And as you can hear, that's a dicier subject that people get a little bit more sensitive about. So I agree with you in the West Turlock. Obviously, wants an expedited timeline and agrees with you. Originally, we had direction from that board to make sure that the accounting was in the GSP. So we certainly, agree that the accounting needs to be done. I think even East Turlock agrees that needs to be done too. In the MOA, the amended memorandum of agreements both says we agree this has to happen, the GSP. So there is information, there's basin kind of level accounting of how water moves. And then there are both the positions of the East and West Turlock about how that water is accounted. I think that the next step, and the reason that we all agreed that accounting is necessary, is because it really defines the problem and tees up solutions and projects. So I think those are longer term components. And I think that the 2-year timeline is okay, because I think by the time we get projects off the ground and know who should do, which GSAs need to do projects, I think that's the accounting component will really inform that. So there is accounting in the GSP, but we then need to talk about, who's doing projects where and when, and I think that's the accounting mechanism we're talking about, that second part. So I probably already said too much, but Michael, if you have any other thoughts.
No, just, accounting is not required under SIGMA and the legislation. So this is something we've agreed to put it in a little bit now and also accelerate to get it completed. Because as Valerie mentioned, we think that facilitates the development of projects and management actions more readily than in some of the other basins who are still struggling on some of the basics, and it's slowing up their march towards sustainability. So we feel like we've accelerated the process a little bit, certainly ahead of what the legislation requires. And I think in those first 2 years, it won't affect too much in terms of how we work together. We do have 20 years to get to sustainability, but obviously the sooner we get it done, better for everybody.
Well, this is Rhett. So the issue is next year, if it's dry and the west side needs to pump to keep their crop, then we're going to accelerate the groundwater decline. And so I'm really interested now, if this is the direction of the GSP and we're going into a drought, we know now if it's dry, we're going to pump, and they always pump. So we're all going to pump. So we're going to press on the accelerator pedal in a dry year. And the inner milestones and minimum thresholds will look ridiculous because we can't figure out how to do the accounting. So until we get that figured out 2 years from now, let's all just hit the accelerator and let's pump. Because supposedly nobody's coming after us, like the state doesn't care, or individuals in this basin that may not know what's being decided, but they'll figure it out when their wells have issues. They'll do some research and find out what decisions have been made. It'll be hard to explain. Well, here we are. We knew it was dry, and we knew it could potentially be another dry year, and we know we're all going to pump. So we're going to accelerate the decline of the groundwater in this basin. It doesn't look good. It seems like if we don't have the accounting in place, then we need some other actions to say, look, we don't have the accounting in place. And so we're not going to be able to tell anybody, you should shut wells down or all that. And projects, these projects are going to take a while to get implemented. So we're not going to add anything to the groundwater. We're going to take it. And this is what the whole plan is supposed to slow down and then turn around and then have some stability. But we're setting off on the wrong foot. I'm interested also. I have a question. If the positions are released, then what chapter is that in? I'm reviewing the GSP now, and I haven't run across the positions and the accounting, but maybe I'm not looking on the right chapter.
So the positions will be included as part of an appendix. And I believe the wording is, it will be in chapter 9, the implementation support activities. So in addition to that table you saw today, Valerie and her counterpart worked on some language, like a paragraph or two, that'll go in that chapter to explain the approach.
So it is now available, or it's not available?
And we're taking to the board next December 15th to get that released. Let's
So
work me on that one.
So what's the comment period on that? If the comments close on that day, it's a 1-day comment period on the positions of the accounting for the west and the east side?
Well, the things have already been released. The comment period ends on the 15th. Information that comes out after that will obviously still be able to be commented on. And once it's submitted to DWR, DWR has its own comment period, which I believe is 60 days. Is that right? So after, once we submit it to DWR towards the end of January, there'll be another 60-day comment period that DWR will have. So lots of opportunity to continue commenting.
Right. I'm inside this GSA, the West GSA, and I'm commenting on the GSP for my area, but I won't have access to this information until it goes to the state.
You have information, I think it's being released to the boards next week on the 15th. So you'll have it then.
Right.
Just not to belabor the point, Reb, but just remember, this is it's a 20-year plan. It's 20 years to get to sustainability. Even if we had water accounting dialed in today, I sincerely doubt that we'd have demand reduction and pumping restrictions in place for next March or April. We are worried about things today. So, and I get that we're all concerned about, the drought and hydrology and that type of thing. But even if everything was buttoned up, it would be unlikely that we'd have basin-wide, demand management, pumping restrictions, however we want to call it, in place for next March or April when the irrigation season starts. Let's say it's not important, but it's just a reality.
I guess I have a problem whenever I see TID claim they're using conjunctive use, which sounds like they have the accounting down for the west side, at least the irrigated territory of TID. they understand what's happening with the groundwater, and they use conjunctive use, and it's stated in the plan that the seepage from Turlock Lake and the canals and the excess water applied to farms is the water that's being for conjunctive use. But now we don't know, because we don't know if the entire basin is pulling from that. And we won't know for 2 years. So it's like all the accounting that TID has done, not for the future 20 years looking forward, we're looking back to how long TID has claimed conjunctive use. That is nonsense now. We don't, I guess you'll tell me that our position, TID's position,
Right.
side's position is that we do claim conjunctive use, and we do have a claim to contributing to the basin more water than we've pumped out. I feel like I'm behind. I don't see this written down anywhere. I want to read it.
That information will get out, and then if you want to call us and follow up for more questions or information, that'll be good, Rep. Thanks for your comments. Do we have any other comments from the public or the boards, or the committees? Okay, I think we had a motion in a second, right? Karen and Curtis for the West Turlock. So with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so that motion stands unanimously from the West Turlock TAC. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, I'll be looking for the same motion from the East Turlock. And just as from the East Turlock position, I just want to reiterate what was said by West Turlock. We know that this is a critical component and really are committed to moving forward as quickly as possible. And the schedule is, an excellent timestamp for us to make sure that we meet those deadlines, but we're fully committed to getting this resolved as quickly as possible. So unless there's other question or comments from the East Side TAC or public, I look for a motion.
Move approval, Walt.
It's Walt. Second?
Second from Lacey.
Thanks, Lacey. And I'll do a roll call vote. Walt Ward,
Yes.
Lacey McBride,
Yes.
Matt Beeman,
Yes.
and Sarah Wolf, yes. Motion passes from East Turlock.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Moving on to item number 7, review and discuss administrative and technical edits to various chapters within the GSP. I believe Phyllis from Todd Groundwater, you're taking this.
I am. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for attending today. Let's get this show on the road here. Okay. Today I'm going to be handling both items, agenda items 7 and 8, and we'll start with number 7, which is the administrative and technical edits to the GSP. So we're well underway. As you may know, we're still in the public comment period of the GSP. And during this time, there are some additional edits that are being made. So we want to bring that to the TAC. We're going to also bring that to the board and also the public. And so we just want to go through some of that today. So let's just begin. So we have been busy filling in data and information gaps throughout the GSP. You might recall, if you've reviewed some of this, that every now and then you'll encounter a subheading without any text. And that's because we really needed the GSP process to be further along to be able to add that information. So we've been busy doing that. We've also discovered that we do have analyses that have been reviewed by the TAC and not captured in the GSP, and I'm going to spend a minute talking about that in just a second, but that's another kind of category. Another revision that we've been making to the text is to make sure that the wording is more closely aligned with the regulations. It's just a bit of cleanup and making things more consistent and more clear. We've been providing updates on selected items. In particular, we describe several programs, several ongoing monitoring networks, et cetera. And so we have provided some updates throughout the document as reasonable. But I want to just note that there are some things that are not being updated, and they're not being updated on purpose. For example, we have many data and analyses presented throughout the technical chapters of the GSP. It's extensive. And you can imagine that if you tried to continue to chase your tail and get all of the water levels continually updated every single 6 months, every single year of the GSP process, it might provide more updated information, but it doesn't serve the purposes for which those data and analyses were originally intended. Rather, we needed the historical study period to be able to understand how the basin became with the groundwater conditions that it has now. And so as a result of that, there are a lot of data and analyses that are not updated because they still meet that requirement. And more importantly, they're often average hydrologic conditions. So if you keep adding on, then you change that average hydrologic period. Also, there are some new planning documents. I want to assure our TAC member agencies that if you have updated urban water management plans or agricultural water management plans, we are not ignoring those. You have that information and data now out in the public, and we will continue to use that information, especially in the future annual reports going forward. So just because we haven't recognized that you have a new document on the street now in this GSP, that doesn't mean that we're going to ignore it going forward. And then there's a zillion new little cleanup items. You can imagine when we've developed this document by chapter over a 3.5-year period. And so there's formatting issues. There's some inconsistencies with respect to references and citations and acronyms that we needed to clean up. We're adding an executive summary that's really best done at the end because you're pulling from the information and text that's already been developed throughout the document. There's a little bit of additional checking of data gaps and other minor clarifications and technical edits. So I'd like to just go through some general categories and information specific to each chapter, because I think that will help you better understand what edits actually have been made. So with chapter 1, there was really a couple of holes for an implementation and cost and for a plan manager. So this is filling in that information that we needed to do again at the end of the process. For chapter 2, the plan area, that's where we've been updating primarily descriptions of information. I thought it was helpful to add some beneficial uses from surface water into the plan area, and that wasn't fully captured the first time through. So we updated that. Because we have been relying on the GAMA website and other data sources, we added that information so that everyone would understand that there's an additional data source for the document. And we also updated some information on the nitrate control program, because that's a very important component of our water quality analysis within the document. With respect to chapter 3, which is notice and communication, we'll never be able to keep up with this. You know, we're just updating. We're having a meeting today, so we need to update that, and additional meetings going forward. So there will be continual updates on chapter 3 for meetings and the appendices. And in particular, the accounting information that we just talked about will be in a new appendix. So we'll have that information incorporated, as well as additional information. And then finally, just to summarize what we're doing with the basin setting, because this really is where the bulk of the technical information resides within the document. The chapter 4 portion of the basin setting describes the hydrogeologic conceptual model and the groundwater conditions. And that chapter is key to the GSP process because it provides the technical justification for all of the sustainable management criteria, and then all of the projects and management actions that are relied upon to meet those criteria. So you can see how everything is sort of linked together. And since we wrote chapter 4 more than 2 years ago, we needed to go back and just bolster the text so that the required information was there, so that the reader could really be able to better tie and link those two sections of the document. We added some information on fresh groundwater and storage. We added information on rates of water level declines. We had a large area, a large section of the groundwater conditions is devoted to looking at historical hydrographs and changes in groundwater levels. And there were a few areas where we needed to actually put into print the rates of those declines in certain areas. And so we added that back in. We have a new text and a new Appendix F that documents the integrated
that's
surface
your
water
prescription
groundwater
drugs.
model. Oh, hi, someone needs to mute. Thank you. And so that is being put into the document now. And we're going to make that available, of course, to the public. We'll bring that again to the board on the 15th. Subsidence. So we did want to do some updates here because there was additional information that had been published on the Sigma website with respect to GPS stations and also additional INSAR data that the Department of Water Resources had commissioned, and it goes through 2020. So we did update those analyses, and we also included at the request of a TAC comment the uncertainty associated with some of the INSAR data. So that's new to the document now. And then we also have some updates on the section for interconnected surface water. When we wrote this chapter, the modeling was incomplete and we didn't really have enough information to say very much from a quantitative perspective. Now we do have a lot of those quantifiable components in Chapter 5, which is the water budgets and ties together with Chapter 4 for the basin setting. But we also wanted to summarize some of that information, both as an introduction and also to just bolster the basin setting, again, with respect to the details of surface water. And in particular, this is a change that we are making right now and making a recommendation to the TAC, is to add documentation of gaining and losing reaches along each river boundary. And let me explain just a little bit more about what I'm trying to say here. So the GSP regulations require us to look at location, quantity, and timing of stream flow depletions of interconnected surface water. This is something that we've spent a lot of time and a lot of analysis in the GSP on. And I believe that we have done a pretty good job of capturing a lot of the details, especially on quantity and timing in our water budget section in Chapter 5. But we had done additional analysis with respect to interconnected surface water on timing and locations along each of the 3 river boundaries. We provided this to the TAC and discussed it in detail. I'm not going to review all of the details of that here, but we recognized at the end of the day that this really wasn't adequately captured in the GSP. The water budget section was a little more standardized and a little less itemized with respect to every single river boundary. So we thought that it would be helpful to the GSP to add that back in to the basin setting section into the interconnected surface water of Chapter 4. And so here is the one of the 2 figures that I am recommending for inclusion. So we called these node maps. And you might recall that we have, these maps represent different time periods of the historical study period. The first 10 years of the historical study period is on the left, the last 10 years on the right. And each one of these little dots that are colored along the river boundaries are nodes from our integrated surface water and groundwater model. And they have been analyzed for a very, as you can imagine, we have surface water and groundwater connected along these rivers. And as a result, the interaction between these 2 systems is very dynamic. It changes seasonally, it can change even weekly, and it certainly changes over time. And what we have done here to begin to better analyze the timing is to look at each one of these nodes with respect to whether it is a gaining, losing, or mixed condition. Gaining meaning that the groundwater is contributing back into the surface water, base flow. Losing meaning that there's groundwater seepage through the river, there's surface water seepage through the river channel into groundwater, which is losing recharge. and then a mixed condition, which would be really a mixture of both. And so you can see that each one of these little nodes have been color coded, blue, orange, or green with respect to the timing and condition associated with the average conditions over these decades. So I'm hoping that the TAC members recall seeing this. It's been some months, but we did talk quite a bit about it with the projected water budgets and interconnected service water. So we'd like to include that back into the GSP to meet the regulation requirements. So this is for the historical study period, and we just have one more very similar slide, which would be a figure also in chapter 4 for the future conditions. And this is again without projects. But I think what we can see from looking at the historical conditions section and then comparing that to the future conditions section is that we, number one, see a correlation with water levels with respect to stream flow depletions. And number two, we see that without projects, we would increase stream flow depletions over time. And that was a conclusion of the modeling analysis. And it is stated already in chapter 5, along with the more itemized components of the water budget. And so we're bolstering that, that analysis with this additional analysis that provides a little bit more information on locations and timing. So the recommendation is to pull back in that analysis into chapter 4. And then just to finish this edits section off, there are additional ongoing edits that we're going to be continuing with respect to the text and appendices. The edits will be made to the GSP with respect to the agenda items number 5 and 6 that were just discussed and approved by you. So we'll be putting that back into the GSP. We are finalizing the details of the appendices. Most of these are just resolutions or governance documents associated with the GSAs and the GSP process, but there are a few that have some technical information. I'll just point out item number D, the numerical model documentation. I know that some people are not interested in going through the details of that and perhaps find that a bit of a dry topic, but there's a lot of good information in there that talks about the justifications and the process with respect to using the model and applying it to the GSP analysis. Appendix G, you've actually already seen. Those are the water level hydrographs that have the sustainable management criteria on them. And then we have some planning information and other things as well. Appendix I, with respect to the previous discussion, is where the memorandum of agreement and additional exhibits will reside. And then finally, there will be technical edits for the required elements that DWR has a template for, just to make sure that our text, again, is more consistent and more closely aligned with the requirements of the regulations. Those are the technical edits outside of the response to public comments, but the biggest edits probably to the GSP that are going to occur between now and adoption will be responses to public comments. We've reserved a special TAC meeting date, January 4th, to review any of those changes to the GSP that were made as a result of the comments as needed. My next agenda item is going to review the process for response to the public comments. But before I show those final 2 slides, I want to pause here and see if anyone has any questions at all about the administrative and technical edits to the GSP.
That's great, Phyllis. Anyone have any questions on the administrative and technical edits?
We have a TAC.
Don't see any comments, I don't see any hands raised. So with that, Phyllis, please proceed.
Okay. I actually am ready for the GSAs to consider this information and direct our technical team to continue on with these edits and get them into the draft GSP. I think we have an action item on the agenda to do that. Sorry.
Okay.
So moved.
Curtis, that was fast. Okay, so this is a motion approving administrative and technical edits compiled to date and recommended inclusion in the draft GSP. And provide directional process for additional edits. Did we cover the process enough for you, Phyllis? You okay with that? For the additional edits to finalize the document?
Yes, I felt like that was what this described was our process for making these final technical edits. These are the types of edits and the details that we either have already done or we're going to be going through between now and the 15th.
Right. So approving existing edits and the process for additional edits to finalize the document. So we have a motion from Curtis Cheritsma from Hillmore County Water District. Do we have a second?
Second, Michael, City Modesto.
Thank you, Miguel. City Modesto, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion approved unanimously. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. So the East Turlock needs to approve the proposed edits as described by Phyllis. Can I get a first for that?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Matt. A second?
Walt, second.
Thanks, Walt. I'll do a roll call vote. We may have lost Lacey, but we'll find out. Matt Beeman,
Yes.
Walt Ward,
Yes.
Lacey McBride. Looks like she had to get off. And Sarah Wolf, yes, it is passed by the East Turlock.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, we're going to now move on to the item number 8, which is the response to comments process. We heard today about getting our comments and how does that all work. So Phyllis, you're going to cover that item and talk about how we're going to deal with comments from the public and agencies and that type of thing, and how we respond to those according to the SGMA legislation.
Yes, thank you again. I would like to do a shout out to Stantec, our outreach consultants that are with us because of the Department of Water Resources Facilitation Services Support Grant. So they have been a big help in walking us through a variety of options and helping us get to a real process that I think is going to be meaningful and importantly can get done in the short amount of time allowed. So give me just a few minutes here. I'm going to walk through just 2 slides and we're going to talk about how we expect this to work both internally and then how we're going to bring it to the TAC and the public and then the boards. So initially, our outreach consultant is going to record the comment letters as they're received and itemize those comments in a working matrix. Then the technical team and the ad hoc committee is going to coordinate and review those comment letters and develop responses. For my part, our technical team that I'm leading is going to review the letters, identify technical comments in particular, and develop responses at the same time and on a parallel track to the ad hoc committee as they're going to go through the letters and identify policy comments and develop responses there. Then we're going to, as the technical team, will bring this back to the ad hoc committee, probably groups at a time over the next couple of weeks, and begin to resolve all of the responses with the ad hoc committee. The public comment period closes next week, so it's really it's already begun. Our process has already begun, and we're going to continue on. But we anticipate that we might have either comments at the upcoming public hearing and or we might have some late comments coming in. So we're going to continue this process going forward. At the point where we get our comments resolved and the technical team has direction to move forward, then we would make any of the approved revisions to the GSP at that time as needed. Some of the revisions will be very short and straightforward. We won't have a lot of time to do a lot of detailed and additional analysis, but we will be able to work with the ad hoc committee on a reasonable path forward to commit to a path forward here. So all of the responses and the comments will be documented in that matrix. And then we're going to go ahead and clean that matrix up and include that as a GSP appendix for Chapter 3, Notice and Communication. So that will allow for a real transparent process on how the GSAs and in particular the ad hoc representing the tax have gone through each one of the comments and considered them and provided a resolution and a response. And then any substantive edits that have been made to the GSP, of course, we want to bring those back to the TAC before adoption. So we're targeting and holding the date of January 4th for a potential special TAC meeting as needed. It could be that the responses will not be all edits to the GSP document, but rather simply information provided in a response matrix. And if that's the case, then it may not, there may not be a need for the special TAC meeting, but we want the TAC and the public to be able to see GSP revisions in particular before adoption. And then I just have one more slide, and that shows an example of what this matrix looks like. The matrix was decidedly more complex when the outreach team brought it to us, and we worked through what we thought was a reasonable way to get this done in the time that we have allowed. And I think we have a really nice streamlined process. The purple are the columns that the outreach consultants are going to be responsible for. They're going to take each one of those comment letters, identify and number a comment, summarize for the technical team that comment in the matrix and get those letters to us immediately. We'll be using that information to develop our responses. The technical team will record their responses internally here in that green column. The ad hoc working for the TAC and the GSA will develop responses in the blue column, and we're going to make sure we have documented who actually reviewed the letters and provided information in those comments with initials in that final column there. So we're working through this now, and on December 15th, we're going to review this process for public comments with the Joint GSA Board of Directors. So we wanted the TAC to see this process first and make sure they felt comfortable with it so that we could take it to the joint boards. Again, in that December 15th, I'll be summarizing the comments that we've received to date. And at that point, we'll still be in the public comment period. So at the meeting, we would invite and receive additional comments that anyone might have on the December 15th date. Then on January 4th, as I mentioned, we might be holding a tax special meeting if there are significant and substantive changes to the GSP. In any event, we're going to come back to the joint boards on January 6th for the required public hearing and the final GSP adoption. And then after that, we will have a few additional weeks to pull together all of the monitoring data and details and other documents that are required for uploading and make our January 31st deadline for the entire GSP submittal. So that's all I had for the process. I'm happy to take any questions on that. Want to make sure that the TAC understands the process and feels comfortable with us moving it forward, especially since it's such an expedited schedule.
Again, thank you, Phyllis. Any questions for Phyllis from the group? You're doing such a good job, Phyllis. There's no questions. That's what it is. Okay, that's very helpful because I know that for a while there back in the summer we're struggling how are we going to do all this? How are we going to put it together? But again, your group and then Stantec and Herb and everybody kind of got together to figure out a process that I think is very good and well thought out. So thank you for doing that. Yeah, that's not an action item. That was just a informational update. So that's how we'll go about that business. Okay, so moving on to item number 9, Sigma related updates. This is a chance for members of the TAC.
I'm so sorry. Please excuse me. I'm so sorry. I think, let's see. Oh, I see. Excuse me. There's no approval process for the response to comments. Um, We were just voting there and I just thought we were going to be voting on everything. So
Right.
please excuse me, Michael, we are moving forward. Thank you.
Right, and I think we're comfortable with the approach, and we're going to use that as our guideline. So thanks for double checking those, Phyllis. Okay, so back to item number 9, Sigma related updates. That's where TAC members just provide general updates on Sigma or groundwater related issues. There are no more freestanding items there. Herb, do you have anything on communication and outreach?
Yeah, Michael, just real quick, I'll just mention, I'll pull up a slide here that I had before the meeting started, that we have until we're asking for comments by next Wednesday, the 15th, on the GSP, all of the 9 chapters that have been released. And so we're hopeful to get comments at that time before next Wednesday, or by close of business next Wednesday, the 15th. I'll also note that same day, I'll pull it up here. We are having the another joint GSA meeting that we're working on getting the agenda out. There's a lot of significant items that we're planning on having on that agenda, but one of them is that we will be having, I say, a workshop-like setting to highlight the GSP comments and letters that have been received thus far. We're also going to outline, similar to some of the items you may have heard, we heard today, the response to comments process and what that looks like. And then we will have an opportunity, it being the 15th, the day we're asking for comments to be submitted by, we're going to receive any new comments at this meeting as well. We'll be ready to take them down from people that are making them orally if needed. And then we certainly also welcome people to submit written comments as well. So just noting that is something to kind of, tie a string around your finger for the meeting next week on the 15th. I believe the plan for most GSA meetings is that would be a night meeting around 5 o'clock. I'm not going to commit everyone here to that yet until we put the agenda up, but my guess is that's when we've been holding them, so that's when the meeting will be held. So just wanted to note that for the group. And then also similarly, the GSAs will be together again on January 6th as we turn the year over in 2022 for the public hearing that we announced to adopt the GSP. And to take, to have the boards act on that GSP before submitting to DWR. That's all I have, barring any questions. And
Herb,
yes,
I do have a question. This is Milt
hey,
Treeweiler.
Milt. Yeah.
Oh, okay, for public comment, I haven't looked at the online section that shows me what I can do. I can fill out a form on the computer online and send that to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, Milt, that's a good question. That's correct. There's a form on the there's a link on the GSP page which says submit comment, and what it'll do is it'll give you a form field and you could submit that. Or what even might be easier, because all that really does is it generates an email and sends it to the account to inform us. What might be easier too, if you were to just send, you could draft up an email as well, or you could draft up a Microsoft Word document and attach it to an email or a PDF or whatever you prefer, and then email the email address that's listed on that page. It's listed on our GSP page, but for the record here, it's Turlock Groundwater at gmail.com.
At gmail.com.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Turlock Groundwater.
Yeah.
Okay.
So feel free.
Will
feel
you
free
give
to
me
do
some
that.
kind of will you give me some kind of confirmation so that I'm sure that it was received?
Correct. That's what we'll do. Usually they flow to me through one way or another of how the workflow process comes. And I usually send a short email to whoever submitted it and thanking them for their comments and letting them know they've been received, and that people are free to follow up with me or ask additional questions or provide additional comment if needed as well.
Thank you, Herb.
You're welcome.
This is Rhett. I have a comment. So just to show you how dumb I am, I went to the Turlock groundwater.org site, and it doesn't have a place to make comments, but you have to go to the GSP website, the Turlock GSP website, to download the proposed GSP sections and to make comments, I think.
Yeah, I pulled it up on the screen here. Our homepage here just has general information. But the one-stop shop for everybody will be this link over here that says the GSP. And that has a lot of information on it. And it does have some jump leaks here because it goes down toward the bottom of the page. But it has, as Milt was mentioning, asking different ways we could where we have comments available to be submitted. But then there's a comment button here should people want to get to the form that Milt was referencing. And then of course they have to be emailed to turlockgroundwater@gmail.com. But then then we have our 9 chapters here. And so those are the ways that people can submit comments and download comments on this page. And then we even have I believe we've received 6 letters thus far with multiple comments in each letter. We have the letters that have been submitted thus far as well, that we post to the site so people can take a look at those as well. So it's a big kind of clunky page, but it is kind of our one-stop shop for everything GSP. So, and maybe it could even be good too to have I could look into having something more prominent on the homepage, point people to that as well.
Thanks, Herb. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all. Good questions.
Thank you, Herb. So Debbie, Herb almost stole your thunder, but a little bit more on schedule. Grant, because you're getting down to the wire here.
We are. I think we've talked quite a bit about the GSP schedule and finalizing it. We will have a hearing on January 6th to consider adoption of the GSP, and then following that, I'll work with the technical team to get it input into the DWR portal, and officially it's submitted to DWR. So that's kind of the rest of the process that we kind of haven't talked about today. I also have an update on the grants. And it's really the Prop 68 grant that we've been working on. The rest is a GSP development, and we've already talked through a lot of that. There are 3 projects, just to remind the group, there are 3 projects funded under the Prop 68 grant. One is a PEIR, and that process is moving forward. We have an ad hoc committee working on that process, and so we met earlier this week, and the team developing the PEIR has drafted a notice of preparation and circulated it briefly to the ad hoc. We've identified the timeline for releasing that notice of preparation, or NOP. We plan to do that on January 7th. So that's following the adoption of the GSP. We would then release the notice of preparation, and it'll have a 30-day comment period. And there'll be a scoping meeting scheduled in January. And so we are updating the draft notice, and we'll be circulating it to the TAC for their review prior to finalizing it. So the TAC will be seeing that. We are also going to begin the installation of the monitoring wells that are funded under Prop 68 starting next week. So we're pretty excited about that. I'm working with the ETS staff to address minor little changes to location and that sort of thing, because we're going to be installing at a time where there's more weather conditions and what have you. So Mike Pizza and Julianne have been working with us on that as well. But we are excited to begin that process. And then the last project funded under that grant is the groundwater recharge assessment tool. And you've heard about that on a couple different occasions. It's very close to being finalized. And so the plan is to schedule a meeting to hand that off to the TAC and the member agencies in early January, and have a training session, and there'll be a demo video and some other things to be helpful to the agencies as they embark upon using this new tool to help us better manage and plan for recharge opportunities. So that's that. So those are the 3 projects, and they're moving progressively along. So we're really happy about that. And I'll stop for any questions there might be, and then I have one more item.
Any questions so far for Debbie? Doesn't sound like it, Debbie. Go ahead with your other items.
Thank you. So the last item is a reminder to the Technical Advisory Committee. Each of the agencies has received a request for data for the annual report. That data request is due next Wednesday on the 15th. So please get back with me if you have any questions. I sent over the spreadsheet from the technical team that needs to be updated from water year 2016 through 2021. And so it's really important we stay on schedule in order to be able to meet the deadline for April 1st for the annual report. So please get back with me. And please copy me on the emails that you send back to the technical team, or you can forward it back to me or Jennifer, and we can forward it on. But we need to get that information in quickly. Any questions on that?
Zanika, we got our marching orders, Debbie.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any other Sigma-related updates? We're glad to see some rain with more to come. That's always good. Okay, so our next meeting, remember we have a joint board meeting, West Turlock, East Turlock board meeting on December 15th at 5 o'clock. And the next regular joint TAC meeting is scheduled for Thursday, December 23rd. For those of you who aren't taken off for Christmas already, so Thursday, December 23rd. And then we have a special joint meeting scheduled for Tuesday, January 4th. Okay, so those are the 3 items in the hopper there. And again, as Herb mentioned earlier, then we have the joint board meeting on January 6th, 2022 to actually move the plan on to DWR. Okay, with that, moving to item number 11, adjournment. Motion for adjournment from the West Turlock Technical Advisory Committee.
Karen will motion.
Karen motion. Do I have a second?
I will second, Michael.
Who was that? I missed that.
Leandro.
Leandro. Leandro second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, West Turlock, we're adjourned at 3:18. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. East Turlock, we need to adjourn. Can I get a motion?
Adjourn.
Walt, thank you. Matt, second.
Yep.
I'll do a quick roll call. Walt Ward,
Yep.
Matt Beeman,
Yes.
Sarah Wolf, yes. We are adjourned for East Turlock.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.